2019 is officially upon us, so that means it's time to talk about my favorite books of 2018. First and foremost, we need to touch on Harry Potter. Surprise, surprise, anyone who knows me will not be shocked to see this in my 2018 favorites wrap up. I have read all of the Harry Potter books before, multiple times. However, I did a reread via audiobook of the entire Harry Potter series. I believe I did the first one or two at the end of 2017, but I did complete the rest of the series in 2018. Listening to Harry Potter via audiobook was a very exciting experience for me because I picked up on a lot of things that I had missed out or that I had started to skim over in the books as I had read them so many times. When you're listening to an audiobook, it's a completely different experience, for me at least, in the sense that I can really just focus on every single detail. Having the story read to me actually slows down my reading pace significantly, so I'm able to pick up on things that I have forgotten about or that I have, like I said, skimmed past previously. Another series that I started at the tail end of 2017 and I'm continuing on in 2018 and now 2019 is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. And this is a little bit of an interesting series because it starts off in the first and second books as a series that you feel is going to go one direction. Then you get to the third book and you're thrown a complete loophole. And the fourth book is even a little bit different than that. I'm now on the fifth book out of 7 books, and it's become very clear to me that while this is a young adult author, I think these books are a little bit more in the new adult genre, meaning they're for a little bit of an older group than your typical like teen reader. There are a little bit more hints at sexuality in the later books, so I think that makes some young readers uncomfortable, rightly so, if you're not used to reading those things. I, however, am 26 years old now, so I am totally comfortable with sexuality in books. It doesn't bother me at all. I do understand how someone younger could have started on book 1 and gotten to book 5 or even book 7 and kind of been like, what happened to this series? Where did it go? However, I'm really enjoying the ride, and I think that the books are developing nicely and growing for an older audience. So I'm loving the Throne of Glass series so far. Another book that I read and absolutely loved in 2018 was King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. And holy moly, what can I say? I've done book talks, I think, on 1 or 2 of the books from this series on my channel. I will link them down below if I can find them. Yeah, I really love this series, and this book in particular was a very interesting turn of events in the series. For those of you who don't know, Mare Barrow is the protagonist of this story, and it's a little bit of a dystopian, a little bit of fantasy, all the things that I really enjoy reading the most. But this book, the third book in the series, takes Mare to places that she has not been before. It really tests her resolve as a character, and you get to see a little bit more in her than I feel like you see with a lot of dystopian female leads. I really enjoyed the reading process of this book, and I am now currently reading the 4th and final installment in this series, and I'm just eating up every second of it. So this is another book and series I would recommend. The series is called Red Queen, and the book itself is King's Cage. Next up, we have The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, and wow, I can't even like sum up how much I loved this book. It was so educational for me. It was entertaining. It was enthralling. The story is just so absolutely beautiful. This story follows our female lead, Shahrazad, who is living in a land. I'm not quite sure on the setting or the time period of this story. However, she's living in a land where there is a king, if you will. His name is Khalid, and he takes a new wife and kills a new wife every day. And Sherzad has just had her best friend married to the Caliph, the king, and she has been killed. So Sherzad is out for revenge. She volunteers to marry Khalid, and a journey that you are not expecting just unfolds from there. I think that The Wrath and the Dawn was incredibly well written, and like I said, I was enthralled from the very beginning of the story. Shahrazad is a very compelling main character, and Khalid is a great villain. I wouldn't even call him a villain because you really do get to know him in ways that you're not expecting to, and his story is beautiful. Their story together is beautiful, so I highly, highly recommend this book. Moving on to one of my more recent reads in 2018, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I just read this in 2018 because I was slacking on Cassandra Clare, and I'll never do that again because one of my favorite reads in 2018 was Lord of Shadows, which is the second book in the Dark Artifices series by Cassandra Clare. So, what can I say about Lord of Shadows? It was fantastic. The story is just incredible. The characters are incredible. The plot twist, not even a plot twist, but the cliffhanger on the very last page will like break your heart and then just like put it back together and then break it again. It was devastating and beautiful. It was a read that I won't forget for a very long time. And I feel like Cassandra Clare's books do that to me every time I read them. If you know anything about Cassandra Clare, you know that she's been writing for a long time. She started with City of Bones, which is the Mortal Instruments series, and this is now her 12th or 13th, but I don't know. She's written quite a bit in the Shadowhunter world, the Shadowhunter saga, if you will. The Mortal Instruments is a great series. The Infernal Devices is a great sort of prequel series. And now The Dark Artifices is just finishing so strong. And I know that going forward, I just feel that Cassandra Clare's work is going to get better and better because it has with every book I've read of hers so far. So I'm just really enjoying one, being with these characters and in this storyline, but also seeing Cassandra Clare grow as an author and really delving into the complexities of her stories as they continue. If you haven't figured it out up until this point, I really like stories. I like stories that are well written. I like stories that draw you in. I like characters that make you feel and make you root for them and make you hate them. And I get sucked into a world so easily if it's a well written, well developed world. And this next book is no different than any of the books that I've talked about so far, in that it pulled me in. It really drew me into something that I wasn't expecting, and that is Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. And Three Dark Crowns was a really interesting read for me in that it was different than the sort of dystopian fantasy books that I had read up until this point. The premise basically is that there are three sisters who were separated at a very young age. They each have a magical skill or ability, and as they come of age, they are going to have to kill each other so that one of them can take the crown. So it was a little wild. I thought I had predicted a plot twist, did not predict it at all. The actual plot twist, if you will, totally caught me off guard. And as someone who makes it a game to predict twists in movies and shows and books, I thoroughly enjoy being caught completely off guard. So if you like that as well, and if you are looking for something that's a little bit different from your standard, I feel like, cookie cutter box of this sort of dystopian magical fantasy read, I would highly recommend checking out Three Dark Crowns. The next book on my list is a complete shift from anything I've talked about up until this point, in that it is a contemporary book. It is not a magic-based story, it is not a dystopian, it is not from another time period. This book is very relevant to what's going on in our world today, and that is The Nowhere Girls. I don't have a physical copy, but I will put a picture up here, as I did read the ebook for this novel. The Nowhere Girls is an incredibly important story that I feel like every single person could benefit from reading. It is a book for teen girls. It's a book for grown women, a book for mothers and fathers. It is for everyone, and I highly recommend that anyone read it. Basically, The Nowhere Girls is a story of high school aged girls who get together and form a group called the Nowhere Girls, and they are going after the men in their lives who have taken consent to be a non-issue. The particular situation at the high school that the girls are going to involves a couple of athletes who are taking liberties with the teen girls at the school, so much so that one of the girls was raped and subsequently ended up leaving the school and leaving the town, and basically her life was ruined because she decided to come forward and try to go after the men who raped her. That is so relevant in today's world, and I just think it's important as women, as men, as people, that we all acknowledge that people of both genders have their right to say yes or no, no matter what the situation is, and that consent, whether given or denied, should be respected. So, not to go too much on this subject, but I just think it's an incredibly important book, and it was very poignant, and with everything going on in today's world, I just think it's a good read for everyone, so I would highly recommend that. Moving on, the last book on my list here is The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. And The Rules of Magic is a prequel, if you will, to the Practical Magic book and movie. The book was also written by Alice Hoffman, and it was adapted into one of my favorite movies of all time with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman. Great movie. And this story, The Rules of Magic, focuses on the aunts from Practical Magic. In this story, we see a young Jet and Franny, and also their brother Vincent, as they navigate growing up. They deal with the reality of the Owens curse, and they try their best to embrace who they are as witches. And I just felt like it was a really interesting human story. There was not any huge battle or magical reveal or something that just was like a boom moment in the book. But I was engaged throughout the whole story. I felt what the characters felt, and I grew with them, and I was angry when they were hurting, and it was the type of story that just absolutely, I don't even have words, because it's something that's so intangible. It's very rare for me that I find myself so interested in a book that doesn't have a central villain or plot point that we're trying to get to in a book or a series. There's not a mission or a goal. It's just the story of siblings growing up and learning who they are and dealing with some magical powers along the way. So that's that. Those are my 2018 favorite books, and I probably could have picked 20, 30 books, you name it. I kind of cheated with mentioning a few series, but those are just things that are really interesting to me right now. And I have a very big reading year in 2019 ahead of me, so I'm very excited to see what that holds. In 2018 total, I read 55 books, including audiobooks, ebooks, and physical books. So it was a very busy year for me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read as many in 2019, but I'm definitely going to try. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see what 2019 has in store for me on the reading front. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want any more book-related content. And I will see you next time. Thank you.